obviously you've been in, like I mentioned earlier, you've been in this industry for, a lot of the years, and I'm sure you have so much knowledge and expertise to provide to many young professionals like myself. So what are some of the challenges you've experienced over the years in within recruiting or even talent acquisition? Welcome to the Hiring State of Mind. This is another episode, and on today's episode, we have Leena Chugh, very special guest. Leena actually is a talent acquisition and recruiting professional with over 10 years of experience within the industry. And today we want to pick her brain and just learn a little bit more about her and, her expertise within the industry as well. So Leena, welcome to the Hiring State of Mind.
Thank you so much, Taj. I'm so excited to be here and share my thoughts today.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. So thank you again for coming on to the show. I figured we'd start off today just by kind of going over first, a little bit about you. And I guess what I'm curious to know more than anything is how'd you get introduced to recruiting and HR, and what kept you in this industry for as long as you have been within it?
To me, this is an interesting story, but to people out there, it might be heard pretty often. So like a lot of people out there, I did stumble into recruiting. I made my way into a master's program in HR, an MBA, claiming that I'm a people's person. And my hope and dream was to be in this large corporate setup, being an HR professional. And I get out of college and I get into recruiting. That was my first job offer, and I took it, and it was in an agency environment. But you take what you get and you run with it. And I ran with that for quite a few years as I was still trying to establish myself. So to tell you the truth, I kept trying to get back into real HR for many years. Or that was still an unfulfilled dream. Ultimately, somewhere along the way, corporate recruiting fell into my lap, and that is when I truly fell in love with recruiting, and I realized that this is what I truly want to do, work with hiring managers extensively, tell my candidates that I have a true career for them and not just a job. Have real conversations, stay in touch with, again, everybody, whether it was HR or hiring managers or candidates, just build those relationships and maintain those relationships in the long term. And that is where I found success. That is where I found my love for recruiting. Today, I feel like recruiting feeds my soul, and it just makes my day when I recruit somebody and hire somebody and make their day and make my hiring manager's day.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. I've been in the industry for about 13 years myself. And, I think the opportunity to work with people day in, day out, it's rewarding. And then also, it kind of fuels your energy to help people out on a day-to-day basis. Very, very limited professions can really say that they get the opportunity to help people on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's very, very accurate for what you just mentioned. So you mentioned corporate recruiting is where you actually really found your love for it, right? So I'm curious to know, what about corporate recruiting was maybe so, I guess, good for you, and what made you gravitate towards more corporate recruiting and at that point in time?
Yeah, so I would say the way things happened, again, the journey that I was on in my career, I was more in a black hole kind of recruiting setup. We were a vendor for very large corporations, Target, Delta Airlines, and whatnot. And we were a vendor. We were a vendor out of many others. And so the quality of conversations that I was having with my candidates and with my hiring managers wasn't the kind that I got to have when I got into corporate setup. The intake calls that you do and the follow-ups that you can do, feedback that you can ask for and you truly get back. That was important. And again, I was hiring more of the contractor population when I was with the agency that I was at. And so that changed too when I started hiring full-time, permanent staff. And that's when I could truly have those conversations, what is going to be a career changer for you? What is going to be a game changer for you? And that is where I could totally attach myself to whoever I was having these conversations with, again, on both sides of the table. So that meant a lot to me. And that's where I could truly bring my skills out for being a people's person, because I am that. I am very social. And those 10-minute check-off questions that I was trying to get through when I was in the agency environment didn't cut it for me.
Makes sense. I get it. Now, you've been in a lot of different industries. I know you mentioned, you worked with Delta in the past, and obviously working in a lot of different industries. I'm also, wondering hey, for you, I'm sure it was an adjustment coming into any position that you held within these different industries that you were in. Now, I guess for you, was there a specific industry that also, you enjoyed working within? And if so, why?
So with my last position, I was at Home Depot, and that is the corporation and industry that I truly enjoyed working in. As I was mentioning earlier, I was recruiting for Target for many years, and I always had a fascination, and I always dreamt of working full-time for Target because I could identify with them, because I was a customer at Target and I would shop there, and I'd be like, how fun would it be if I was an employee at Target? So that is the feeling I got when I got hired at Home Depot. Again, I was still a contract recruiter for them, but it just helped so much. It helped to understand the business so much more, because you understand retail, because you go to that store and buy things. And then it was also very relatable for candidates when you're selling a company that they are very familiar with. So I would say I did enjoy retail recruiting a lot, but I did enjoy Delta Airlines a lot too. Again, I feel like it's the same theme. It's something you can relate to, and it's something your candidates can relate to, and it is a pride moment to share statistics maybe, or data that you might want to throw around. Like I would do that all the time, how many stores we have, how many employees we have, or the employer of choice. We got these awards, and people relate to that. I mean, those are large corporations that people identify.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, hey, as long as you can relate to it, you become, I guess, more attuned with what it is that you're doing, right? So, everybody shops at Target, and everybody for the most part loves Target, right? So when you're able to recruit individuals to come to Target, I think you're even able to maybe even put on your selling hat a little bit better too, because you're very passionate about the organization in itself.
Absolutely.
Cool. That's good to know. For you, I know you've spent a lot of years in recruiting too. So I always love to ask anyone that's been in recruiting, tell me what you love the most about recruiting and tell me what you hate about recruiting. Yes.
Well, I think it all ultimately boils down to an offer. What I love about recruiting is that moment when I'm extending an offer to a candidate. It's just the excitement I am conveying and putting down the funnel when I'm mostly extending offers on the phone. And it is the excitement that I'm hearing in the candidate's voice. So it makes my day, of course, when somebody accepts an offer. And at the same time, it is very heartbreaking when someone doesn't. More so when they do accept and then they decide to decline later. That's even worse. But yeah, I would say the offer acceptance is my favorite part of recruiting. It's definitely a no when somebody declines.
Yeah. I work with a ton of recruiters daily, and I can tell you whenever they get a counter offer, like a candidate gets a counter offer for another position or someone declines an offer, right? It's like, if they were at a 10, they easily go down to a 2 immediately. So I know what you mean about that. And, being in the industry for as long as I've been in it and doing a lot of recruiting myself, it is a little demotivating sometimes when that happens, right?
It absolutely is. And I will tell you, it is definitely something that I'm good at too. So it's my favorite part to do, like making the offer as in closing the candidate. And sometimes it takes weeks of pre-closing in order to get to this day when you're thinking you're going to make the phone call and this person is going to accept. But yeah, I mean, offer negotiations could take days or weeks too. And I love that part and I know I'm good at it. So that's something I pride upon too. That, it's a skill that you can hone on over the years.
I can definitely agree with you about when you're extending offers out, that being an enjoyment in the role as well, because you get to hear them on the other end of the line. People are excited when they get the offer that they desired, right? And, I think it goes back to what I had mentioned earlier. It's very rewarding. You feel like you've accomplished something through doing that.
Agree. That is so true.
Now, for you, being that you have experience within recruitment, but you also now have also experience most recently in talent acquisition. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between the two.
So for me, the biggest difference was definitely the quality of experience I had. I feel like I was still able to provide a quality experience to my candidates when I was in the agency or third-party kind of setup. But for me, the loop never closed because I was not part of how the jobs were built or how feedback systems were set up. And it was also about what I could contribute. So currently in my corporate recruiting positions, I play a large role to be a talent advisor. So I am a consultant all the time, whether it is related to compensation. What can I bring to the table? What did the candidate say? What is it that we can do to close this candidate or, to close this offer? And is there a systematic change that we need? So whether, again, it could be recruiting systems, it could be recruiting processes, it could be HR practices, it could be compensation that needs to be mapped to the market perhaps. It's the back and forth that is the big difference. Previously it was all just take it as it is, versus now it is more about, can you advise the hiring teams or your TA leaders about what's going on in the market? Do we need to pivot because the market is pivoting in terms of recruiting practices, in terms of sourcing, in terms of, again, salaries, incentives, what is the competition doing? And people here, if you're at a good organization that wants to keep up with competition and keep growing and sustain itself in the market, you have to pivot with the market. And yeah, that I would say it's a big difference.
Gotcha. No, that's good perspective. Now, being in talent acquisition, what are some trends or what are some things that you see within the industry that maybe, we all need to be very aware of?
I would say it's flexibility through and through. More and more people are wanting to be remote. More and more people are talking about work-life balance. More and more people are talking about growth opportunities. So my most recent experience was at healthcare, and this was a brand new industry for me. But it is interesting that some people who have been doing the same thing for several years and know that there aren't really many growth opportunities in that area are still asking about it. So, when I bring that feedback to my hiring teams and leadership, there is a discussion about there is limited opportunity in certain areas, and that's how it was. So then that makes me put on my thinking hat. Okay, what else can I talk about? Because there's always lateral growth. There could be horizontal growth or there could be vertical growth, right? So then I would talk about, okay, what can you do horizontally, if not vertically, for this candidate, and what is the conversation I can have in that direction? So yeah, I would say flexibility and growth are definitely trends that will be talked about in 2024 as well. And then compensation is going to be a hot topic, or is going to continue to be a hot topic. The market has been a little volatile in 2023 with a lot of professions, including recruiting. And I feel like companies might have gotten away with a lot of things, but usually there is cutthroat competition. Candidates are going to be asking about bonuses, or, sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses, yearly bonuses, along with their base salaries.
I think after the pandemic, that was something that just became regular for a lot of companies to now start to institute, whether it be a sign-on bonus or a regular bonus, like you mentioned, right? Or hey, what kind of incentives are you guys offering, right? So in order for me to want to work here, and what differentiates your company from the other companies that are out there, right? Mm-hmm. We're in a more candidate-driven market now, where candidates kind of also... I don't want to say fully, but they kind of dictate what's going on in the industry to a certain degree, right? So for employers out there, it makes it challenging sometimes. And I think for us, we just have to be very creative on how we're, obviously going to onboard new staff and also retain our staff.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Now, obviously, you've been in, like I mentioned earlier, you've been in this industry for, a lot of the years, and I'm sure you have so much knowledge and expertise to provide to many young professionals like myself. So what are some of the challenges you've experienced over the years in within recruiting or even talent acquisition, and how have you overcame those challenges?
Well, it has been quite a journey. I will tell you that it took a lot of courage to get where I am today. And that is the number one message I will give to anybody who is seeking for jobs, whether you're fresh out of college or experienced. Just be courageous. I think you have to take risks. You have to get out there. You have to make yourself visible, and even be willing to be vulnerable. That is where today's market is. Until the time I was thinking, I need to do this, I need to get here, and I wasn't talking to those many people, I didn't get where I wanted to be. So, it's a lot of intertwined things, but I would say be courageous, be willing to take risks, be open to opportunities. There are so many different kinds of opportunities out there. Do not close the doors. And I would say, keep networking. Just surround yourself with people who are willing to support you and who lift you up. So there were all of those people who said, oh, you're an Indian. You're not going to get into corporate recruiting. You see all of these white people sitting in this team. And I did not let that deter me. When I came to the country, I came with a visa. So, for years, I had the dream of getting into the corporate world, but it was a challenge because immigration is a real challenge. Work authorization is a question you've got to answer with every question. And more often than not, you get rejected just for that reason. So that was another thing. Just don't let your dreams die. you have to keep working towards what you want and where you want to go, and you'll get there one day.
Yeah, 100%. I can tell you from experience that when I graduated college, it was during the height of the recession. And it was very hard for me to obtain employment during that time because most companies weren't hiring. And, it really took a lot of like mental fortitude and just knowing that this is what I want to do and just keep on going at it every single day, like applying for jobs and really approaching it like, 10 toes down and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward every single day. That actually led me towards obviously getting into this industry. So I think this industry, like you mentioned earlier, also found me. I didn't find it. But definitely for the job seekers that are out there today, that's really good perspective and making sure that, if you're passionate about it, just continue to go at it.
Absolutely. You have to be resilient. In today's market, nothing is going to succeed other than resilience. You fail, you fall, and you get up and you go. That's how you serve yourself, and that is what I would tell my job seekers to do.
I'm also curious to know, when you first started in, recruiting and hiring, how has it changed from then till today? Like, how is it today? What's maybe changed about it? Is there any, if anything?
When I started my career, posting your jobs and praying over them definitely worked. Posting might still work for some companies, for some positions on some good days. But I would say you have to get out there and source more often than not. And it is important because there's so much treasure out there as well. I think what companies are doing for their employees has changed also. What worked earlier in terms of companies offering jobs alone doesn't work anymore. Employees are seeking for more. They are seeking a good culture. They are seeking work-life balance. They are seeking competitive compensation. They are seeking flexibility. So they are asking for much more than previous generations.
Yeah, I definitely see that in today's market as well. Even from when I started in this industry in 2010. So, 13 years ago, it was much different. I think a lot of people were just satisfied with monetary, satisfaction. Let's just say, you increase someone's salary. That was the way of like showing that, hey, you're doing this person's doing a great job, or this is how you retain top talent is just by increasing someone's salary. In today's market, it's so much different. You have to be very mindful of work-life balance, like you mentioned. You have to be able to have a good culture within your organization. So I think it's definitely changed a lot in those capacities, like you mentioned. One thing, this kind of ties into my next question. One thing that we typically like to ask all of our guests on the show too is, how do you go about retaining top talent right now?
As a recruiter, I truly feel the bonus of retention starts right where I am. When I have conversations with my candidates, I always like to know what they're looking for. And that is exactly what is going to serve us well as an employer and is going to serve them well. Because if you cannot provide what they're looking for, you cannot retain them. That is the reason they are looking for a job right now. So I would say retention starts from recruiting, from knowing what they're looking for, and then from keeping your promises. If you promise them the flexibility that they were looking for, or if you promise them the bonus that they will potentially get, we better be coming through with our promises. And then, of course, the job itself, it has to ultimately match with their expectations. I mean, yes, there's the skill set, but, I always say there's a mini culture inside every team. So Are they really getting along with other people on the team? Are they getting along with the manager? Is the company, really providing the good benefits that the candidates thought they would get on paper? I see or I hear a lot of disgruntled candidates talking about, premium cost is high or whatever. So sometimes there are mismatched expectations. And so to me, retention is a mix of what the employees are doing on the job, but then what they're experiencing around the job also with their teams, with what the leadership is talking about, where the company is moving. Like, I would want to work for an organization that is growing, that's heading somewhere, where I could feel job security. So those are some important things to think about when it comes to retention.
For those candidates or job seekers that are out there today, maybe seeking employment, right? And, obviously they're looking to get to that point where they can be retained by an organization. What piece of advice would you give, to the job seeker today that's out there looking for employment?
I would say, again, keep your goals top of the mind, what you want to do and where you want to be, but also be flexible. Companies have the obligation, so to say, or the responsibility to serve their employees, to keep those promises when they hired them. At the same time, they need to move with the times. They need to, track where budgets are or competition is, or, how is it that they need to move with regards to the market, or what is the direction that they're going towards. And if they need to pivot, employees need to be willing to change and pivot as well. So retention also goes both ways in a way. So if you like being at a company, but their growth plans might be changing or their business plans might be changing, so that's something that is a conversation to be had, perhaps. But I feel like you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to look at the entire picture and then connect the dots before you move on. I mean, there's always this hot discussion about, people used to stay at companies much longer earlier, and if you move within a year or 2 years, are you considered a job hopper? And a lot of people out there would tell you no. If somebody had a good reason to move, it is totally acceptable, because in recruiting, those are the discussions we have all the time, right? To me, the grass could be greener on the other side. And as I have moved through so many organizations, I have also realized that there is no perfect organization. You might come across the same issues or different flavors of the same issue or different issues. And you just have to make it work. That's one thing that I have definitely learned over the years as well. You have to be responsible to make it work as well. And you just cannot be running after that mirage.
Yeah, you're very right about that, Leena. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I actually was having this conversation with one of my recruiters maybe a couple days ago, and we were talking about how the intentions of a job seeker or someone that maybe just acquired employment has to align with the company's intentions when they are looking to hire someone. Most people, to your point, sometimes come into an organization and they say, hey, I'll be here for a year or two, right? And then I'll look to probably move on from that. Whereas the organization might not have that in mind. They may be looking at this individual as someone that's probably going to be a long-term fit at the company for the next 5 to 10 years, right? So if the intentions aren't aligned, then, it becomes a problem. And I think that sometimes also is one of the reasons why retention becomes an issue for some organizations, right? It's because maybe the intentions that they have for their organization is not aligned with the candidate's intentions as well.
Absolutely. I will tell you that we currently have a sign-on bonus that we offer to our candidates. And it is so common for me to find these candidates who will tell me, oh, can I not sign on the side for this agreement? So they obviously want the extra money, but they don't want to sign the contract. And that is a big turnoff for my hiring manager, because they don't want to hear that you're not even going to stay with me for a year or two after we invest months into training. It is intense training. And we've already invested so much money, directly and indirectly, into you. And you're already telling me I'm, afraid I may not be able to stay with you 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a challenge.
Yep. Last question I like to usually ask every guest that's on, when interviewing right now, what's your favorite question to ask when you're on an interview?
I have 2 favorite questions to ask. One at the beginning of my conversation and one at the end. My first question usually is why you're looking for a change. That is very important to me, to know where they are and where they want to be, and if I can actually fill those gaps that they're trying to bridge. And then my typical last question is about compensation. Again, where do they want to be? It is not a legal question to ask where they are, but a lot of people will tell me that too as their guiding point, where they want to be, which is fine. So those are 2 of my favorite interview questions, and that is my secret to how I close them, because again, I want to just make sure that I provide them what they're looking for, why they came to us or me at the first place.
It's all about meeting and exceeding expectations, right? So if you can meet someone's expectations on those 2 fronts, I think you'll more than likely, like you said, close. So that's some good perspective there, Leena. All right, perfect. Well, that kind of wraps up today's episode on the hiring state of mind. Leena, once again, I really appreciate you coming on to the show and giving us some perspective on, your time within the industry, and then more importantly, telling us what you're seeing right now in the industry and what's to come as well. For anyone that's looking to get in touch with you, Leena, how's the best way for someone to maybe reach out to you?
LinkedIn is my new community. That's where I live every day, all day. So I would say find me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow me there. I have a straight handle there. You can find me by my name, Leena Chugh, and I should show up. And I look forward to connecting with people.
All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode on the hiring state of mind. This was another great episode. Please like, comment, subscribe to the videos so we can have more guests on the show just as great as Leena. Leena, any last minute words for the group or for the world?
Well, I just want to say a big thank you for having me here on your show. I really enjoyed this conversation. This is great to be here, and I am looking forward to continue the conversations out in the world.
Absolutely. We look forward to having you on a future show.